Hello everyone, Movie Story here. In this video, we will tell the plot of a Bollywood film entitled Bajrangi Bhaijaan. We highly recommend this film because apart from having a fresh story, this film has also touched millions of viewers and brought tears to their eyes. Okay, instead of being curious, let's just take a look at the following storyline. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. The film begins when a child named Sayeda is taking care of her sheep on the hill. At that time her father ordered Sayeda to go home because it was getting dark, so Sayeda went back home while playing wheel drive down the hill. But unfortunately, the wheel came off, so he chased after the wheel. Because he was running down a steep hill, Sayeda fell and rolled until he finally fell down the hill. The father, who had just arrived home, was asked by the mother of Sayeda, where was his son, why had he not yet arrived home? Listening to this, the father realized that something was wrong, because Sayeda should have gone home first. They all immediately went down to look for Sayeda, and one of the neighbors found that Sayeda was still safe because it was stuck in a tree trunk. Sayeda was a small child who could not speak or was mute, so at that time she could not scream for help, and could only wait for someone to find her. As a result of the incident, the elders in the village gathered and suggested to the mother to take Sayeda to a holy place in India, so that Sayeda can speak. But the problem is that they live in Pakistan, and India is a neighboring country. The father could not go there, because he had been in the military, so it was impossible to get a visa. Listening to this, the mother said that she would bring Sayeda to India. Either way, he wants to be able to talk again, so he can go to school. The day of departure arrived. The father could only take his wife and child, went by train to India. Was a bit horrified to also go to India. Besides, they are Pakistanis, they are also Muslims, and these two countries have previously been in conflict. Long story short, Sayeda and her mother went to the shrine mentioned, hoping that by following the rituals held Sayeda could talk again. Their belief, the poems from the holy place, can grant wishes and be considered efficacious. After that, they returned to Pakistan again by train. In the middle of the journey, the train they were riding was damaged, so their journey was temporarily stopped, until the damage could be repaired. While waiting for the train to be repaired, people were resting and sleeping, including his mother. When it was Sayeda woke up, he saw outside there was a lamb. Because he was used to playing with sheep, he decided to get out of the carriage to play with the lamb. But when he was outside, the carriage was running again. Unfortunately for Sayeda, she could only chase the train with her small steps, and couldn't scream for her mother, because she couldn't make a sound. The train was getting faster and faster. Sayeda was crying at that time, because she missed the train that went out to Pakistan. Not long after that, he saw another train passing by. Thinking that this train had the same purpose, he boarded this freight train, but unfortunately, the freight train was traveling in the opposite direction. Meanwhile, in the passenger train, his mother wakes up and realizes that Sayeda is not there. She screams for Sayeda, out of panic. She orders the train to stop. A search was carried out, but unfortunately, because Sayeda had taken another train, she was not found. But the mother insisted on finding Sayeda herself, but the problem was the train had already entered Pakistani territory, and to return to India the mother needed a visa. Because they couldn't do anything, they also made a report to the police. They just hoped that Sayyidah could meet good people who could look after her. Sayyidah, who was sleeping on the freight train, woke up the next morning, woke up in the midst of the Indians, who were celebrating the celebration of Lord Hanuman. He also joined the crowd. There he saw a man named Bajrangi, dancing and singing for the celebration. When the dancing was over, Bajrangi saw Sayyidah staring at him. Knowing this little girl was not looking at anyone besides himself, he also offers Sayyidah drinks. Sayyidah immediately ran to him and finished his drink. It was seen that Cyanide was very thirsty, and Bajrangi decided to buy food for Sayyidah too. When Sayyidah ate, they also asked for names, but Setter, who couldn't speak, of course, was silent 1,000 languages. Bajrangi also told him to finish his food, then left the table. But after that, Sayyidah instead followed Bajrangi, because of confusion, and thought that Sayyidah was lost. Bajrangi took Sayyidah to Hanuman temple. He told Sayyidah to pray that his parents would find him again. Once again Bajrangi left the Sayyidah there, then he went home. When he got on the bus, he saw Sayyidah chasing him, so he asked the bus driver to stop. Bajrangi also brought Sayyidah to the police station, but the police refused if she left her there. But what if her parents searched for her and reported her here, said Bajrangi. You see, there are a lot of thieves and thugs here. This little girl can't live here. What if his parents don't come? This is what the officer said. You write your contact there. Later, if someone confirms, I will contact you, said the police. Finally Bajrangi brought Sayyidah home. On the bus, Bajrangi asks where Sayyidah lives, by mentioning all the names of cities in India. But Sayyidah can only shake her head, because she is not an Indian citizen. The other passengers even helped Bajrangi to name the cities that may be the city where Sayyidah came from. But none of the names of the city, which made Sayyidah raise her hand. Bajrangi actually not from Delhi city. Because of his dead father's request, he also had to go to Delhi city, to visit his father's friend named Dayanan. There he met Rasakar, the son of Dayanan. Bajrangi stayed there for a few days. There he often accompanies Rasakar, whether it's when she is working as a teacher, worshipping or shopping. That closeness makes Rasakar fall in love with Bajrangi. Once upon a time, Dayanan's house was visited by a friend, intending to propose to Rasakar. But at that time, Rasakar had already fallen in love with Bajrangi, and decided to reject the proposal. Fortunately, Dayanan respected his son's decision to choose his own soulmate. The proposal was cancelled, and Bajrangi was given time 6 months to buy his own house, as a condition of his and Rasakar's marriage. Because of that, Bajrangi came back to Delhi, to inform Rasakar's parents about the progress of the down payment for the house that she was working on. The other passengers loved to hear Bajrangi love stories. Arriving at Rasakar's house, Bajrangi also explained about Sayyidah as a lost child. Dayanan also said, what if the legitimate parents don't look for their child? How long do you want to do this? Help other people than yourself. You have to work hard, buy Rasakar a new house, then you can get married, remember that, said Dayanan. When accompanying Rasakar shopping, Bajrangi also said to Rasakar, maybe this Sayyidah is a child from the Brahmin caste because her skin is white, then what if her parents don't look for her, said Rasakar. He knows he is an orphan. There is some truth in what Rasakar said, thought Bajrangi. But I think if this child is an orphan, God will inform me, said Bajrangi confidently. Meanwhile at home, Sayeda, who is not used to eating any Hindi food, decides to finish her meal quickly. And while in the kitchen, she smells fried chicken, cooked by her neighbor Dayanan, who happens to be a Muslim, so Sayeda decided to go there. Day after day passed. Bajrangi and Rizikar often carry Sayeda wherever they go, even when worshipping in the market. But Sayeda is a Muslimer. She went to worship in a mosque in the market. Bajrangi, who saw Sayeda praying, was shocked, and realized that the little child she helped is a Muslim. He also came out of the mosque, and informed this to Rizikar. Bajrangi is afraid that her father will throw her out, because Dayanan doesn't want to. There are other religious people living in her house. But Rizikar doesn't want to leave Sayeda, because she is just a 6-year-old child, far from home and far from her parents. About caste and religion is bullshit. Don't waste our time on trivial matters. You are a good person, that's why I love you, said Rizikar. They went inside to look for Sayeda, and there, Bajrangi got a hug from a small child who was still innocent. In his heart, Bajrangi also promised he would still take Sayeda home. At home, Bajrangi was worried that Dayanan would find out that he brought Muslims up to his house, but Rizikar said, "You will tell her father, no one will know about this," said Rizikar sure. At the same time, in this house watching together, the cricket match between India and Pakistan. When Pakistan managed to score and win the match, Sayeda clapped and danced in front of the TV, which made everyone astonished, especially Sayeda kissed the Pakistani flag on the TV. Suddenly everyone there was shocked. Bajrangi asked Sayeda, "Is he from Pakistan?" Sayeda raised his hand and nodded his head. Dayanan was furious with Bajrangi, and ordered Bajrangi to deliver Sayeda to the Pakistani embassy in India. Dayanan still has his own grudge against Pakistanis, due to the past conflict. Dayanan didn't want Sayeda to be in his house again, so the next day Bajrangi tried to go to the Pakistan embassy and explain what happened. But because the passport was valid with his mother, the request was rejected. Bajrangi was expelled by security officers because he kept insisting to leave the Sayeda there. At the same time, there was a riot in the embassy office. Luckily they managed to get out. However, due to the riots, the Pakistan embassy was closed, and visas to Pakistan were frozen for 1 month. Even when Bajrangi wants to ask for help from travel agents, they can't make passports to go to Pakistan. But from there Bajrangi was given information if there was a way for him to go to the border without a passport. But this officer asked for a large amount of money to Bajrangi. In the evening, when Bajrangi counts the money she has, Rizikar gives her savings to Bajrangi, money for their house down payment. But for now the most important thing is to return Sayeda, says Rizikar. Even with the money collected, Bajrangi returned to bring Rizikar to the travel agent, and left the Sayeda there. Actually Sayeda refused to go with the officer, but Bajrangi had no other choice. While crying she left Sayeda there. On the way home, he saw people selling bracelets that Sayeda liked, so Bajrangi decided to buy him a farewell gift, and he quickly decided to follow Sayeda to the place earlier. But it's too late, the travel agent's office has closed. But from a distance, Bajrangi saw that the two of them had taken a rickshaw, so he chased after the rickshaw. When he caught up, he got information from the rickshaw driver. If they both went to the hotel, Bajrangi then followed them. This hotel is a prostitution hotel, the place is not right. Bajrangi then immediately searched for Sayhida from room to room, and found that the officer was transacting with pimps to sell Sayhida. Bajrangi was angry, her eyes were red, her blood was boiling. Sayhida immediately ran to hug Bajrangi. The goons who were there tried to snatch the Sayhida back, but Bajrangi managed to throw the person out the window. One by one the thugs there were beaten by the Bajrangi, including the travel officer. Unable to trust anyone, Bajrangi decides to return Sayhida to Pakistan alone. Without a passport, without a visa, Bajrangi, with his belief, intends to repatriate Sayhida with his own efforts. Long story short, they went by bus and continued their journey on foot. In the middle of the journey, Bajrangi was intercepted by a man named Ali. He was offered a ride, but had to pay some money. Bajrangi refused and chose to continue walking, but Ali assured that if the border fence was powered by high-voltage electricity, the border officers would guess at you, then ask your corpse whether you were Indian or Pakistani, said Ali. For the sarke of this child, come with me, he said. Finally Bajrangi was riding this car. They arrived at the border. Ali then helped them to pass through the fence with a tunnel. When they got to the other side, Bajrangi didn't want to go, until he asked the guards permission to be allowed to pass. Even Ali couldn't understand why the Bajrangi had such thoughts. The guard soldiers would shoot us, he said. But Bajrangi is an honest person, he has to ask permission first. Ali finally ran away from them. When the guard caught them, the Bajrangi said everything honestly, including the way he crossed the fence with the tunnel, but it was of no use. They were sent back to India anyway. Not long after that, by going through another tunnel, they crossed again. This time Bajrangi remained honest, but he was kicked by the guard soldiers, because of his belief. Seeing the crying Sayhida, the commander ordered his men to stop beating the Bajrangi. The commander decided, we will be back here in 10 minutes, we will not know if you go to Pakistan or return to India, but if I see you are still here I will shoot you, he said. 10 minutes later, Bajrangi and Sayhida didn't leave. Bajrangi still insistent, if she needed permission from the guard soldiers, and promised that if she had taken Sadder to her parents, she would come back. Finally the heart of the commander was melted too. They both then get permission to enter Pakistan. They continued their journey. When they took a break to eat and drink, the Bajrangi also ordered Sayhida to eat quickly because the police were there. When they leave, the constables chase them and look for the handcuffs. Bajrangi says they didn't take the handcuffs. Why steal the handcuffs, he says. It turned out that after being searched, it was Sayhida who took it, because he thought it was a bracelet. They were also arrested by the police, and the Bajrangi were considered Indian spies, because they did not have passports and visas. Meanwhile, a reporter reporting a news story at the terminal, there he got info from local residents. If any Indian spy was caught, because it was hot news, he immediately left. Arriving at the police station, he immediately interviewed the Bajrangi and recorded it for the news. At that time, they had a short time, so Bajrangi couldn't explain too much. Bajrangi was asked about his mission to Pakistan, even though he repeatedly explained that he only wanted to take Sayhida to his parents. At the same time that he saw the picture of the hill on the calendar, he nodded his head when Bajrangi asked if that was the place where he lived. The police also asked why Sayhida could not speak. He also said that Sayhida does not have a tongue, where is this little girl's mouth? Bajrangi was angry and beat the police who were there, then ran away. The reporter who was covering the front of the police station immediately followed him. When the Bajrangi got on the bus, this reporter also went up to spy on the Bajrangi. On the bus, this reporter called the police and said that he was on the same bus with Bajrangi, and informed the name of the bus. Bajrangi asked the bus driver about the picture shown. All passengers were given a look, hoping there is information about the place. At that moment, the reporter realized that Bajrangi wasn't a spy, and took off his cover. The timing was perfect, because when the police intercepted this bus, the bus driver and the passengers understood this situation, and covered up the fact. The Nawab cameraman was also arrested by the police and asked for information about the Nawab's whereabouts. He was asked to continue to call the Nawab once an hour. In another place, Bajrangi had thought of surrendering himself to the police, so that those who were looking for the whereabouts of his parents were legal. But Nawab stopped him and said, "You can go to jail and no one will know you exist. After all, the police here are not necessarily like you who try hard. Maybe they will try for a few days, before finally being taken to an orphanage." Nawab also thought of another solution. He tried to sell this story to a television station, so finding the whereabouts of Sahidar's parents became easier. But unfortunately, his efforts failed because there was no television station that wanted to hear the news. Hate news is easy to sell, but love stories like this don't even get a place, said Nawab. They decided to go to a holy place, where there is said to be able to bring together separated people. At the same time, Nawab gets a call from his partner, and he tells her where to go after this. Hearing this, the police immediately moved quickly there after them. Arriving at the place of worship, Bajrangi immediately followed the ritual there, hoping that she would meet her parents again. Bajrangi didn't realize that there were Sahidar's father and mother. Unfortunately, Sahida was asleep at the time, and did not see the presence of her parents there. Meanwhile, Nawab did his own reporting. In the recording, Nawab tells about the story of Bajrangi, who was desperate to cross the border, just to deliver Sahida to his parents. Nawab hopes that with this video, Bajrangi can take Sahida, and return to India safely. After that, he uploaded the video on YouTube. In that video he also reported that the TV station refused to broadcast this news, because the story was considered trash and a waste of time. When he was at the internet cafe, Nawab saw his colleague and the police came. Nawab realized that his location and the Bajrangi had already been known by the police. Luckily, Nawab quickly caught up with Bajrangi, then they ran away from the location. When Nawab's colleagues called, Nawab said that they are now heading to another location to pray for Sahida. Finally, the police left there. While on break, Nawab informed him that he had uploaded his video reportage to YouTube, hoping the video would go viral, and people would help him spread the message. When they saw the footage, it turned out that it wasn't intentional. Her mother was caught on Nawab camera. They also found out that the mother had just gotten off one of the buses, and they also planned to track where the bus got off, so they can narrow the area where Sahida lives. The next morning, the bus came. They immediately asked the driver. From information on the route that the driver took, it was finally known that Sahida was from the village of Sultanpur. Meanwhile, the video uploaded by Nawab to YouTube was finally discovered by the police. They ordered to distribute the video to all police stations. Because of that, the police patrol became strict. The bus they were riding in will be checked by the police. But Bajrangi tells Nawab to keep delivering the Sahida, and he will show himself to the police, so they both have time to run. Bajrangi was chased by the police and got beaten. He was finally caught. Meanwhile, Nawab managed to take Sayeda back to his village. Thanks to the hard struggle of a Bajrangi, this mother and son managed to meet again. Meanwhile, Bajrangi was beaten up by the police and tortured in detention. The video that was offered to be uploaded went viral, was watched by millions of people. Even this news reached India, and was watched by Rizikar. All the print media reported this. The Pakistani people sympathized with the figure of the Bajrangi, but the police chief still didn't want to know and still thought that the Bajrangi were Indian spies. Even though it is a known fact that Sayeda has indeed disappeared in India, this gentleman doesn't care. An officer assigned to torture Bajrangi into confessing, to find out the truth in India, he also received information that it was true that Bajrangi had indeed come to the police station together with Sayeda. Then he also reported this to his superiors, but this cursed father still insisted that the Bajrangi must admit to being an Indian spy. Even threatened to fire this officer if he didn't succeed in getting Bajrangi to confess. This officer was astonished by the thoughts of his superiors, but fortunately, he still has a conscience. He thinks if a man like Bajrangi is to be imprisoned in Pakistan for the rest of his life, then it will tarnish the honor of his country. He didn't want to let that happen either. Meanwhile, Nawab finally helped by a TV station to spread this news. Nawab said that Bajrangi is currently being held in a Pakistan prison, just because of the enmity of two countries. Nawab invites viewers to end this enmity, be it Indians or Pakistanis. So we can raise our children with love, not hate, he said. Nawab also invites the viewers to carry out massive action at the border to ensure the Bajrangi can return to India safely. The news also made the chief of police confused and panicked, and sure enough, the next morning, thousands of people came to join the action demanding the freedom of the Bajrangi. From the side of India and Pakistan, all gathered at the border, Nawab finally met Bajrangi again, informing him that Shahida had met his parents. Nawab also ordered Bajrangi to visit Pakistan again, but not by tunnel, but by passport. Everyone also delivered Bajrangi by shouting his name. Actually, the border soldiers did not want to open the gate, but because they were outnumbered, they were forced to give in and let the Bajrangi cross. The Pakistanis opened the gate. Bajrangi limped, walked out towards India, where Rizikar and her family were ready to welcome Bajrangi. When the Bajrangi crossed, the Sayeda followed to part, perhaps for the last time. But the Bajrangi had already crossed, and almost entered the territory of India. Shahida can't call Bajrangi, because it's too far. Miraculously, however, Sayeda managed to speak again, wanting to summon Bajrangi, triggering his voice to come out. Uncle was the first word that was said to be valid. He was able to speak again not because of various rituals, not because of medical treatment. But his wish was to thank Bajrangi, a kind stranger, who cared and made sure Sayeda returned to her parents again. By prioritizing his honesty and belief, even though he had to be beaten, he managed to complete his intention, to deliver a child who was separated from his mother. And the movie finished.